I think probably the most important person in my creative life who's affected me and my approach to acting, writing, directing, teaching, whatever, is Harold Pinter. Back in the 60s, I remember my favorite critic, Walter Kerr at the New York Times, saying, "This is the age of Pinter." And shortly thereafter, I went to see The Homecoming on Broadway in a half-filled house, and I was enthralled. And I knew that I was seeing somebody who was showing the way for all of us in the theater. And subsequent events have proven me right. It's one of the great joys of my life that last year Mr. Pinter won the Nobel Prize for Literature. I believe he's important for several reasons. The most important reason is I think he is the one writer in the Western theater who is pointing the way from naturalism to a more poetic kind of stylized theater. He's halfway between Arthur Miller and Samuel Beckett. He's somewhere in the middle. He's not as naturalistic, let's say, as William Inge and Tennessee Williams and Arthur Miller, and he's not as extremely avant-garde as his Beckett and Ionesco and Genet and some of the other influences on American and Western theater, but they've all influenced me. I spent a lot of years in New York trying, it's in the book. I've been trying to figure out for a long time where we need to go. Not where we've been, I know where we've been, but I want to figure out as best I can and make some contribution to where we're going, both in acting, writing, directing, and making drama in the Western theater. I think the signpost that for me is Mr. Pinter and his great genius has been the most influential thing on forming my point of view about how I teach this workshop, how I write my plays, how I direct everything. He's influenced everything I do. So this is more important to me personally than almost anything I can talk about. And that's why I keep going back to Betrayal and The Homecoming and this wonderful book. This is, as you know, because I've certainly talked about it enough, The Life and Work of Harold Pinter by Michael Billington. Michael Billington is a wonderful, wonderful writer. It's one of the best written books I've ever read. He's a man of the theater. He knows the drama. He knows what the drama is about. He is obviously a very close associate of Mr. Pinter's. The biography is as good a book as I've ever read about the theater and about drama and about writing. It's a masterpiece in its own way. And I know you've heard me talk about this. I know you've heard me read from this, but I want to get this down. So I have something on tape that I can use to put out there and make it as important as I think it is for everybody who wants to know. All right? And that's why I'm going to read this incredible paragraph that is on page 371 of The Life and Work of Harold Pinter. It probably won't surprise you to hear that words have dominated my life. This is Mr. Pinter now. In my own work, I've always been aware that my characters tend to use words not to express what they think or feel, but to disguise what they think or feel, to mask their actual intentions, so that words are acting as a masquerade, a veil, a web, or used as weapons to undermine or to terrorize. But these modes of operation are hardly confined to characters in plays. In the world in which we live, words are as often employed to distort or to deceive or to manipulate as they are to convey actual and direct meaning. So that a substantial body of our language is essentially corrupt. It has become a language of lies. These lies in themselves can become so far-reaching, so pervasive, so consuming that even the liar thinks he is telling the truth. As has also been demonstrated many times, when words are used with a fearless and rigorous respect for their real meaning, the users tend to be rewarded with persecution, torture, and death. As I said before, the first names that came to mind when I read that sentence were Jesus Christ, Mahatma Gandhi, and Martin Luther King Jr. Sometimes it doesn't pay to tell the truth in a world that is not listening for the truth, or maybe not even wanting to hear the truth. Now, why is that so important to those of us in the drama business, those of us who are learning the craft of acting, those of us who are trying to put something out there that's going to reflect the truth of human life? Why is it so important? It's important because what most of us have been doing for a long, long time in the theater world is play the words, or the meaning of the words, as though that is what is going to communicate to the audience. And as you guys know, who are part of this workshop, we're constantly working on playing what I like to call the white part of the paper. Not the little black marks, not the words, but all of those wonderful spatial relationships that are around the words, the subtext. And the more we can get a handle on what Mr. Pinter is trying to tell us about the truth of the way we communicate in the modern world, and the more we can bring that understanding and that sensibility into our dramatic presentations, the more we're going to reflect the truth of life in the 21st century. We simply are not going to reflect the times that we live in the way that we need to, if we're going to be contemporary, if we're going to be modern, and if we're going to be far-seeing into the future of the drama, if we're still playing on the level of the words. And I don't see that many people, I read a lot, and I read books about acting, and I listen to people talk about acting. I don't see that many people saying what Mr. Pinter is saying in this wonderful book. Thank God that Mr. Billington wrote this book, and I have this as a kind of secondary Bible, because I think it's that important. And as I've said to you before, I think if you can find a copy of this book and read it, you will be rewarded 1,000-fold. It's full of the kind of information I want you to get as members of the workshop.